Hi, I'm Richard Kerr, co-author of the Binge Code and the Bulimia Help Method. I'm really excited to have you here in the second video of our free mini-series. This is video number 2, and this is about pillar number 2, which is physical rebalance. So what's this all about? This is pretty much all about your eating habits. You know, when you eat, how you eat, what you eat, because believe it or not, your eating habits can make a huge, and I mean absolutely huge, impact on your binge cravings. Now this can drive me mad because there's a very common saying that you hear out there, such as, it's not about the food. I'm here to tell you right now, it is about the food. It's an awful lot to do with the food, and if you're not addressing your eating habits, well, it can be extremely challenging to overcome binge eating. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so before we get into this, I just want to take you on a little story. Back in 2005, my wife Ali confessed to me that she was suffering with an eating issue, that she was suffering with bulimia nervosa. Now at the time, that was a complete surprise to me. I had no idea that the woman I was deeply in love with was in so much pain, anguish and misery. And of course, together we tried to get as much help as we possibly could, but unfortunately at that time, help was hard to come by. But the main problem was that Ali herself doubted that she could even recover. You see, Ali had convinced herself that her eating issues were the result of some sort of mental defect, perhaps a flaw in who she was as a person, perhaps a flaw in her genetic makeup. And this idea that there was something wrong with her, that she was broke, made it really challenging to even foresee herself overcoming this issue. After a few months of not making very much progress in terms of recovery, we took matters into our own hands and ourselves began researching and investigating the studies behind bulimia nervosa, food restriction, body-mind connection. And after a period of 12 months, we found some remarkable studies that really helped to change our whole opinion on this whole thing. So I guess one of the big takeaways was just discovered how important the physical aspect is to it. The mind-body connection is huge. The studies all back this up. For example, studies show that dieting is the primary trigger for an eating disorder, not your emotions, not your mental makeup. Another study showed that girls who severely dieted were 18 times more likely to develop an eating disorder within 6 months than those who did not. Yes, that's right, I did say 18 times. Multiple studies prove the same thing. Science proves that a restrictive eating diet is the #1 cause for binge eating and bulimia. Guys, this is fact. So why does this happen? Well, actually, it's pretty simple. A restrictive diet deprives your body of the essential nutrients it needs. It leaves your body malnourished. And this has many knock-on side effects, including intense binge urges, cravings for food rich in sugar and fats, an insatiable appetite, and don't forget, food obsession. And of course, with those side effects, it's only really a matter of time before you end up binge eating. Now here's the thing, what happens after a binge episode? Well, for most people, they actually tend to restrict their food intake the next day. They may skip breakfast, they may eat a smaller amount or go on a brief fast, they may go out and exercise, or they may even purge their food. Now the problem is, all of these behaviours, they are another form of restriction. Your body remains deprived of nutrients and you stay malnourished. And this keeps the binge cravings coming, which leads to more binge episodes, which is generally followed by some sort of restriction, and then you begin the cycle of binge eating, restriction, and binge eating, restriction. And you can stay in this cycle for years. Guys, I just want to make this clear. In all honesty, there's nothing strange about this. This makes perfect sense. Your body thinks that you're in a famine and it's doing everything it can to ensure you survive. Your natural survival mechanism is extremely powerful. If you want to test it out, try holding your breath for 1 minute to see how powerful your natural survival mechanism is. So guys, here's what it boils down to. If you restrict your food intake, you make yourself susceptible to binge eating. If the healthiest, happiest person on the planet restricted their food intake, well, they could end up binge eating as well. This makes sense. This explains why the majority of people who have a binge eating habit was usually triggered off by an initial diet or some form of restriction. And the chances are, if you never restricted your food in the first place, well, you wouldn't have a binge eating problem now. So what can we do about this? How can we resolve this issue? And this is where this idea of physical rebalance comes into play, because we're going to change your eating habits. We're going to bring balance, structure, and moderation into your eating habits. And again, guys, it's all about habits. It's all about adjusting those habits, and that lets your body know the famine is over, and it'll stop sending out those crazy binge cravings. So let's have a look at your habits and see what we need to do. Okay, so the first thing you want to think about is when you eat. So ask yourself, do you have a habit of chaotic eating? So for example, are you skipping breakfast, or perhaps not eating much during the day but then eating lots at night? Or maybe you have days where you don't eat much at all but other days where you eat lots. And this sort of chaotic eating habit can really confuse your body. Your body doesn't know when to expect the next meal, and again, this can lead to binge cravings. So an easy solution for this is to avoid gaps of longer than 3 hours between your meals, and an easy way to implement that into your life is to simply eat 3 meals and 3 snacks daily, or instead you can have 6 smaller meals. The next thing we want to look at is what you eat, and you want to ask yourself, are you restricting the types of foods you eat? And the main culprits here are fats and carbs. And if you suffer from binge eating, you really want to avoid this type of restriction. You want to focus on bringing balance back into your eating habits. So a little way we'd use this, or a little tool for this, is to simply use the 2-1-1 ratio. And that means to add a portion of carbs, protein and fat to each meal. So if that was a plate, you'd have half the plate as carbs, 1/4 protein, and 1/4 of the plate as fat. And that's in terms of calories, not volume. And in doing that, you really help to balance your blood sugars. You really help to give yourself a sense of satisfaction in each meal, and you allow yourself to feel fuller for much longer. And those 3 things can go a long way to really reducing those hunger binge cravings. So next, in terms of what you eat, I want you to ask yourself, are you eating food lacking nutrition? So this means, are the majority of your meals processed foods or fast foods, or just foods lacking color and variety and nutrition? Because as I mentioned earlier, binge eating is a side effect of malnutrition. And if you're not getting nutrition you need, your body's going to call out for you to eat food to get that nutrition. So an easy way to resolve this is to start adding more nutrient-dense foods to your meals. And I'm simply talking about, real whole foods, or foods from the fresh food section in a supermarket, or perhaps even foods that your grandma would have cooked. And simply by adding these extra foods, you're supplying your body with the nutrition it needs, and again, you'll experience a reduction in binge cravings. And finally, we want to look at how much you are eating. Are you eating enough? Because if you're not eating enough food for your body and your biological needs, you will always be prone to binge eating. That is a scientific proven fact. So it's essential you adjust your eating habits so that you are eating enough food for your biological needs. I can't stress that enough, guys. It's perhaps the most important step in the whole Binge Code program. So the 4 key habit adjustments for physical rebalance include eating regularly, eat balanced meals, eat enough, and include some nutrient-dense foods. So that's it for physical rebalance. And that's an overview of our process. And by just making those small adjustments and changes, you can expect to experience a profound impact on your binge cravings. We have had many clients that just by adjusting those behaviors alone have experienced a complete reduction in their binge cravings. It really is that powerful. I would stress, don't rush this. Take your time, take baby steps if you need to, but stay committed to the process and you will see a dramatic reduction in just a few weeks. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we're going to explore the third pillar, personal insights, which really helps to tie all these ideas together. So make sure you watch that one, and I'll see you in the next video.